Well, and you talked kind of about the clinical side of therapy and meeting people where they are. And, it could be a 10-minute appointment. It could be an hour. But what are the first steps that on the opposite side that someone should take when they're deciding that they want therapy, that they want help?
So this is something I talk to because I understand that there are not a lot of me's when I see people and they're like, oh, this is either going to be really bad or it's going to be really great. And I'm like, hey, if you keep coming and sitting across from me, it's going to be great. Trust and believe me. We're going to get some things done.
Yes.
I always remember, like, when I was a case manager, even before I got into the therapy world, trying to get people to engage it seemed like such a challenge. Like, I'm here, just, hey, use me. And I used to tell my clients, hey, I'm like a door stopper. Hey, I can be really effective if you use me, but if you leave me in the corner, I'm just gonna collect dust and keep calling. And so I remember this client, I used to have my door open and I used to see her get on the elevator and I used to wave at her. I'm like, hey, you gonna come and talk to me? Yeah, next time. All right. And I look up the chart and I see when the next time her appointment would come and I would have the door open. Hey, I'm still here. How about you just come in and sit with me for a second? And it started with something as small as that. Just coming in, having the door open, keeping the door open, having a seat. Hey, I'm Carlos. I'm going to be here as much as you want me to be here. I'm probably going to overcall you sometimes, but I'm just trying to make sure you're okay, right? What I learned in school is it that people are the essential piece to healing. And so the people connection, before all the tools, before all the training, I have to feel comfortable with it. And I think a lot of times clinicians get in their head and they're really uncomfortable and that kind of bleeds out into the appointment. But understand, like, they are nervous. Yeah. I am nervous. You are a human. I am a human. I hope so.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the trust and what you're describing right now just totally builds up that trust when you're just like, hey, we're both people here.
Yeah.
I'm a human. You're a human. Let's just talk.
Yes.
And I tell them that as well. It can be, being a CM versus being a therapist is very two different positions. And so when I got into the therapy role, I'm like, hey, listen, sometimes we're going to have uncomfortable conversations. That is therapy, right? I can sit and we can talk about watching football all day, but unfortunately, we got to get some work done.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
And so if you feel like I'm pressing too fast, let me know. But in order to get to that conversation, I have to have a trust. I have to have built that rapport with them. Because in the beginning, as a young therapist, I'm like, hey, they went away and they never came back. What's going on? And so I had to pull back a little bit, but I understood that that's the process. Everyone is different.
And if I could add to what Carlos mentioned, you mentioned CM, case manager, right? And so, and part of that therapeutic relationship, you may have one that present like, hey, my utilities are about to be cut off. I don't have appropriate shelter. And so therapy, that's pretty much out the window at that point. Like, you have to meet those needs. And so as a case manager, that's very important to identify what those needs are and how we're going to help that individual get the needs that they need, the housing or the utilities. And then the therapeutic relationship can begin. But that is all part of it, right?
Yeah. I love CMs and I love the PRSSs. And I try my best to emphasize, like, my care, because I've been in that position, I've been in that role before, to help them understand. Like, I know everybody looks at the therapist as, like, the Mount Rushmore and at the top, but I cannot be effective if I'm scared, if I feel unsafe, if I'm in danger, if my belly is hungry, if my kids are crying. Right? I'm not going to come in and talk to you because you're not listening to me. This is what's important. And until we get those things kind of taken care of, we can't start building a therapy relationship. Right? And so once they come into therapy, I can say, I know that's hard. Your life is hard right now. But if we build some consistency, if you keep coming, if you keep talking to them, don't close the book on us. We can work through these things. And eventually we'll start doing the work inside as well. And you'll have the tools to go out and keep going and push. I think one of my saddest interventions with a client was like 25-year-old female. I was like, so what does tomorrow look like? Like, what are your goals? And she was like, what? I don't have any goals. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have any goals? Like, even a kid, if I ask them, hey, what do you want to be? They'll say a Power Ranger, Superman,
Yeah.
whatever. But for her, she had no tomorrow. And I'm like, this is a drawback. This is me restarting and really looking at Maslow's and where do we start at? Because we have to start with the safety. And that's what the CM and the PRSS role do. And then they can bridge up to therapy and get ready to move on to that next level. So,
Well, you two have years of experience between the two of you. Surely you've come across some misconceptions about therapy. Any in particular that you feel are common or particularly harmful, or frustrating, big hurdles?
Yes. When I think of misconception when it comes to therapy, it's like, what is this place? Why do I have to go to a place? I'm not crazy, or I don't need help with, depression. What is depression? I think it's all those things. And it goes back to the stigma and the label of what those things may look like to one. And to know that therapy is a process. Therapy is not an instant gratification overnight. Hey, you're healed. Congratulations. It is a true process. And Carlos mentioned, like, putting in the work. It is real work. We're starting to dive into some of those traumas and experiences and depression, anxiety, mood disorders. It is work. We have curriculum, evidence-based curriculum that we actually use in therapy sessions. And so I think that's important for one to know what therapy truly looks like. It's the process. And it may be a year, maybe 18 months, it may be more than that. But just be committed to the process. And I think that's a huge misconception.
I think I hear this a lot. Talking, what is talking going to do? And I'm like, have you tried talking? No, I haven't tried talking. Exactly. So let's try it and see what happens. Give me a chance to talk effectively and see what happens, what kind of narrative that we pull up. A lot of times we have, and that's what I told people in the beginning of our first interview. I'm not going to fix anything for you. That's not, if you're looking for that, wrong place, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you a perspective, an honest perspective of what you're telling me from a different opinion. And I will always be honest with you. No matter how much it hurt, it doesn't hurt, but I have to always be honest with you because that is how we got here. And if you want to do therapy, you have to be honest with yourself. Yeah. And so when you walk in this door, it is one of my only rules. Hey, you can leave if it gets too heavy, but you have to be honest, and we have to start there with communication. I often tell people, like, I didn't go to school to give medicine. I believe in it, and some people do need it. But I went to school to learn this tool, and this is the tool that I'm presenting to you, okay? And so I know it's going to be presented a little bit different. It's going to feel a little bit different. We're going to have some fun. We're going to laugh. And I got a Kleenex box right there for you. You need that support as well. So,
yeah.
You were talking about goals earlier. Is that a part of the process, part of your processes? And about when does that come in? And is it tough? And how do people feel about goal setting? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I think for me, we always got to have a clear expectation. So day one, what does this look like?
Okay.
How do we even get through the first appointment? Carlos, I've never been here before, never bared my soul to anybody. I've never asked for help before. And I'm like, hey, you're not asking. We're giving it to you now. We have all these things. We already have them. We don't have to go create them. They're here for you. And so we have to have that clear expectation in the beginning. And from my experience, I always tell them as well, once upon a time, little bitty Carlos, I set a goal for myself. And I didn't really understand goal setting at that time. And I set a goal that was achievable. And I achieved it very quickly. And I was like, oh, man, didn't get me where I was looking for. And so I started to understand that goal setting is about pushing it so far outside of your imagination that it's going to encourage change within you. And if you don't get to that goal, the change you have made in getting to it or fighting for it will ultimately become that goal. And so I tell people, it doesn't matter. Set the goal on the moon, and if we hit a star on the way, we have achieved something and we have changed something.
Yes. In addition to that, Carlos, I think of goal setting being specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and you have to have a time frame. Right? I've been trying to lose weight for 20,000 years now. And I dip, and that's another piece. It could be a little bit of a roller coaster. You may achieve that goal for the first 6 months, and maybe something happened in your life.
That's a great point.
Yes, and it's okay.
That's life.
Yeah, that's life, right? So it's just making sure that those goals are attainable and that you can achieve. And it's okay if you achieve and then you take some steps back, take a few steps forward, stay on the path, a process of recovery and therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think something that school taught me, grad school taught me, 2.5 years accelerated. What does that feel like? That's a goal, right? And most people have never set a goal with that type of distance and that type of time to be consistent with that. And so that's what I bring to them. And I tell them, I know in the beginning goals can be very hard to do, but it's about being consistent. It's about showing up every day. It's about putting the work in. Eventually you will achieve the goal. And once you achieve a goal that big, that's set out that far in front, now you can conquer the world because you understand that it is a process. It is not an immediate gratification. So,
Yeah, you touched on that a little bit earlier. You said something about, I think that would take maybe the right person, and what happens if they don't hit the right person the first time, and how does one find the right person?
Yeah, for me, this was a struggle in the beginning. I had a great supervisor, licensure supervisor, that always encouraged me, just be you, no matter what, and they'll see who you are through that. And I was like, man, it is hard to have someone sit in front of me. Especially like we think that most of our program is like female driven and most of our clients are female driven, which we have found out in our program that we have had a lot more males to be engaged, coming into engagement mental health than the female population, which is a big plus for me hearing that. But in the beginning, he's a guy. He's a guy.
Oh, is there concern about that when they walk in?
What does that mean? And I was like, well, have you ever heard a guy's perspective to this? That could be interesting. I don't know. And so just kind of in the beginning, breaking down those walls. Well, I would say for any like up and coming clinicians or clinicians that feel like they're struggling with that, be yourself. You can only be that, right? And so if a person sits in front of me and they look very different from me, and I can feel it, and as therapists, we can feel the room as well, it's okay to bring that up in the room. I think that's appropriate. And I always tell the clients as well, give me a chance. And if it doesn't work out, I will do my darndest to help you get to someone that I think will be able to help you. And I think that is the goal for everybody. That is the message I put out for everybody. Hey, you might taste a Skittle and not like that flavor. Don't stop right there. Taste another one and see how that feels. Because eventually you're going to find someone that you feel comfortable with, that feels very open and very welcoming. And then you'll start talking and not knowing you're talking. But you're right. If the relationship feels forced, then bring that up.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we can move past that. And so I think that's very important when it comes to like culture as well, because a lot of times people are looking for someone that looks like them. It is very hard to find everybody someone that looks like them, but understand that everybody is trained. I think that's what Teresa said earlier.
Yeah.
We have to have the culture compasses. So,
And if I may add also, you may feel uncomfortable at first. Sometimes you're working on some really tough subjects, some really tough, really hard stuff. And so it may feel like, oh, I need to switch and go to another therapist, when in fact, you're about to hit that milestone, that break that you need in therapy. So give it a chance. Also give the individual a chance before you say, oh, I think I want to go to Carlos instead of Teresa for therapy.